Who would have guessed that after directing Piranha 2, James Cameron would direct one of the greatest sci-fi action films of all time? The Terminator. The 1984 sci-fi action film with some horror elements looming over this perfect storm. But before we get into it, make sure to comment on, like, and share this video, as well as hit the notification bell to be updated every time I make a new video. Like my Facebook fan page and support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month will go a long way. Another thing about Patreon is that if you donate just $1, you will be given access to my kill count videos, sci-fi creatures music videos, and any new content I make that is like that I fear will be given age restrictions or copyright notices on my channel. So, trying to keep Horror Show Host alive while still posting those videos, you will be given access to them on Patreon. Just donate $1. The links to those two sites will be in the description below, and as always, subscribe. Alright, let's get into this. The plot. Two men sent back in time for two very different reasons end up battling over the life of a woman who will eventually carry the child that'll lead a rebellion against the machines of the future. That's it, really condensed into a nutshell. And while it can be considered flawed, I like that they do sort of poke fun at the story a bit. Like when Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, ponders on how she could go on thinking about what happens in the future and everything of the whole plot forever. It's just enough to not be satirical. I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag early in this review and to say that growing up, this was my favorite Terminator movie. Now I plan to go rewatch T2 in anticipation for Terminator Dark Fate, and I will keep an open mind and cast nostalgia out of there. But I still make no promises that this could still easily be my favorite. Or it could be Terminator 2. Who knows? We'll find out. When I was around 9 or 10, among other movies like The Fly and The Thing and other tales of sci-fi horror were on TV around Halloween time. For some reason, I recall the Terminator being lumped in with those films. I also remember AMC's 100 Scariest Moments.
Presenting the 100 Scariest Movie Moments, a countdown of the greatest moments of cinema shot.
Which was also fun to watch, but that's a different story for another time. Point is, I grew up watching tales of science gone wrong, and I loved every bit of it. Of course, films like The Fly and The Thing are a great deal more horror than The Terminator. But I have fond memories looking through the TV guide, which, yes, that was a thing where you would look through an article that had a channel listing and a book that came in your mail each week to see what was on. After the beautifully catching opening credits, the film maintains that vibe throughout the runtime. The whole film has this lightweight metallic feeling to it. It's like a charm, if you will. Things like Machine and Mental are presented with the feeling that you could pick up those tankers and play with them. It probably helps with the merchandise and toy sales a lot. Even though it's cheesy in that regard, the charm never leaves the film. The whole movie is one part action and adventure, and one part drama romance. I absolutely love the chemistry between Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese, played by Michael Biehn. Sarah is, in her opinion, a nobody who won't amount to anything. She works at a cruddy diner where she has kids pour ice cream into her apron and deals with rude customers.
Nice going, kid. How to give you the tip?
It's as her friend says to her.
Look at it this way, in 100 years, who's gonna care?
It's her transformation that makes her character so strong and memorable. Not many people who are given this responsibility would go through with it. Initially, Sarah doesn't, which is a very realistic response. And doesn't even want to know who the father will be. Kyle is the one sent back in time to save her. It's revealed that he has more motives that go beyond just orders involving Sarah. He also suffers from PTSD after his future battles with the Skynet robots. It's shown in flashbacks of a war-torn society, where Kyle and other hidden survivors, scavengers, and others have bloodshed day in and day out. But there is one person who can stand against them. John Connor is Sarah's unborn child. We never actually see him, but his presence is felt. He's made out to be a great leader against the machines. We also get many appearances from actors, namely Lance Henriksen, who prior to this was in Piranha 2, as well as followed the Terminator up with Aliens. We also have a cameo by Dick Miller, which is pretty cool. The real star of this movie and driving force of the marketing department was, and always will be Arnold Schwarzenegger. He commands so much presence that some of the scenes where he gets close to Sarah are downright terrifying. Schwarzenegger plays the T-800, who is the robot sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor, to stop John from being born, and leading the rebels against the so-called superior race. Dang, I just love the plot of this movie, even though it doesn't quite make sense with, I don't want to spoil anything. Speaking of things I love in this movie, the gore, the effects. Now, this isn't particularly gruesome, per se, but it does have some highlights. Like when the T-800 has to repair himself, which leads to some questionable effects, which sucks because I know they worked hard on them.
My involvement is that I've basically the head of a large and extremely talented crew that have built and sculpted and put together this initial concept of gyms.
The rest of the action and effects are top-notch, with a $6.4 million budget. They accomplish a lot with a little. I especially love the T-800's skeletal framework. Practical and stop animation techniques were used and mostly still hold up today. The motion picture soundtrack, if there was one word I would use to describe Brad Fiedel's music in this movie, it'd be hypnotic. It's music you can put on in the background and daydream to whatever your heart contents. There are some very intense themes as well as 80s style techno tracks. It's a really well composed score and goes well with the neon lighting of the dance club and the blue tint to a lot of the film. Despite some minor nitpicks I have with this movie involving the forced love story, the plot contradictions, and some questionable effects, this movie is near perfection. Almost. It's a well-told story with heart, charm, and passion. The action is epic and intense. The acting's pretty solid. The effects, for the most part, are really good, and by the time you reach the climax, you're already out of breath, but there's still 20 more minutes left to go. It's a breathtaking experience indeed. Overall, I give The Terminator a 4.5 out of 5. And as always, subscribe.